Good morning and welcome to the IMAGIN Webinar Series. My name is Thomas Van Bruggen. I'm the president of IMAGIN and I am your host today for our webinar series installment number 12, wrapping up our first season of webinar series. And today we have Brian Woodin from the State of Michigan Land Bank Authority presenting on Confessions of a Part 107 UAS pilot. Some interesting stuff that he'll be sharing with us about how they're using UAS systems for their work. A few slides that I want to just go through for some housekeeping this morning. First off, I want to thank our sponsors of our webinar series this year. Our webinar series has been sponsored by Fishbeck, Giffords Webster, and BSNA Software. So if you're needing some GIS services and support, I want to highly recommend all of these companies. So check out their websites and see how they can assist you in your GIS endeavors. And again, even if it's just to reach out and say thank you for hosting these and sponsoring these, we'd appreciate that. Starting in May, we are going to go right into what we're calling season 2. So we had our first round of webinars kind of planned from last year's conference that got canceled. And those are wrapping up today with Brian's presentation. But then we've reached out to some more presenters and we're building our season 2. And so we have a couple of webinars scheduled already, starting up season 2 on May 13th. Tony Badone is going to be presenting on cemetery mapping and ArcGIS Online Web App Builder, and how you can get even more deadly in a cemetery with hidden pythons. So make sure you register for that and check out that one with Tony. And then on May 27th, Ashley Hitt is going to be presenting to us on the Connected Nation program and broadband mapping advocacy. So register for both of those webinars and then watch your emails. Coming out soon. We'll be announcing more of the season 2 webinar series as they get finalized and the dates are arranged. A couple of housekeeping things. Please use the questions and chat boxes as appropriate. I think most of you, have the question box. So send your questions through the question box and we'll, throughout the presentation and then for sure at the end, address any of those questions that come in. The webinar is being recorded and we'll post the recording and the slide deck from Brian within about a week, if not sooner. And again, check out the IMAGIN website, imagin.org, for more information on the webinar series. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand presentation over to Brian, and we will start our presentation for today.
Are you all seeing the screen?
We are seeing it.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about unmanned aerial systems, being a drone operator. Maybe like a lot of y'all, I've seen some good meetings and good webinars about the way the drones are being used in lots of industries out there to save money, to create efficiencies. So a few years ago, attending one of those meetings, thought to myself, well, how do we go about doing this? And so I'm sure some of y'all have the same questions. You know, how do you get to a point where you have a drone in the air that's doing work for you? So this is just some of the things that I learned while building a program. We're not here to endorse any products, and of course, anything I say is purely my own opinion and does not represent the state of Michigan. But yeah, so there are companies out there have turnkey drone programs available, but we were more on a shoestring budget ourselves. We're a small agency with the state. There's only 9 of us. So we wanted to find a way where we could get this capability kind of on the cheap, do it inexpensively, and keep most of it in-house. So a little bit of my background, loved aviation since I was a kid. I come from an Air Force family. My grandfather in World War II, my dad, uncles, lots of people have a military background. I was in the Marine Corps. I was the black sheep. And then after that, I worked at various flight line operations in Austin, Texas, doing cargo operations. And up here in Grand Rapids doing air cargo, passenger service, general aviation, business aviation, and here is we had some F-16s come out from the West Coast for an air show. So that's me fueling an F-16. Took a tower tour. People at FAA are really nice. Was able to go up in the tower in Grand Rapids and see what they do up there. We had some World War II aircraft visit us quite often. So there's a B-17. And there I am marshaling out a Gulfstream that's getting ready to take flight. So the State Land Bank, just a quick overview of who we are and what we do. So we were created in 2004 And our mission is to recycle land to productive use. This is tax reverted property across the state. We deal with contaminated facilities, state surplus properties, prison sites, things like that. We have almost 2,700 properties from all the way from the UP down to the Ohio state line. So how did our agency that deals with tax reverted property, how did we come about starting a drone program? Genesis was back in 2018. We were visiting with the Genesee County Land Bank. There are condos out in Grand Blanc, the picture on the right here. So these are unbuilt condo sites that we have ownership of 4 or 5 of these parcels. Genesee County has ownership of the rest. So we went out there, looked at the existing units, and so we kind of walked back in here where these parcels are platted out. Of course, there's a kind of a creek running through here. It's wooded. We were traipsing through there. And I have jokingly said to my boss, I said, you know, if we had a drone, we could just fly it out here and not to get our shoes dirty. So we chuckled, and then a little later on, he said, you know, that might not be a bad idea. And the Genesee County Land Bank also did I'm not sure if it was a story map, but it was a presentation for their Chevy Commons redevelopment. Kind of used to be on a Chevy in the Hole, so it's an old manufacturing plant, fairly extensive that they're repurposing. So they were able to put together a nice promotional video using aerial footage. And so we thought, well, how do we utilize that to kind of tell the story of the state land bank? Again, especially on some of our larger sites, the old industrial sites, the prison facilities, our imagery could be outdated. We have Google map pictures, or we have county GIS map pictures. So that kind of spurred us on. So we started the process of looking into how to either have that capability in-house with the UAS, or maybe even to farm it out to see if that was cost effective. So we'll concentrate, the way we did it is going through the Part 107 process. So acquiring a Part 107 pilot license through the FAA. There's also the certificate of waiver of authorization. That's another route that you can take. And I know many public safety agencies have done that. They get the certificate of the COA to operate all over the state. And then they also have their pilots trained under Part 107 as well. So we didn't do the certificate of waiver of authorization. We're just flying under Part 107, so obeying all those rules. So of course, it's like a driver's license, you have to take a test to get your pilot license. So prepping for the test, again, I had a little bit of a background in aviation. So for me, it was just brushing up on a lot of different things. There are options out there where you can take training for a couple of days, and there's lots of no-cost options too out there. Now, taking the test itself, it's about $160. You go through the FAA website to find an approved testing location. Usually that's at an airport somewhere. You go through there, you do your test. It's graded. It's all online, so it's graded right on site, and you get they spit out your piece of paper saying you're good to go. As far as renewal of that license, this has just recently changed. It used to be you would have to do the test every 2 years, again, at an FAA approved location. I think when I did it a few months ago, it was around $90 or $100. The new rules say that you can do no cost online training through the FAA every 2 years to remain current, which is nice. So less cost involved. And then once you get your license, you still want to stay current. So there's lots of ongoing training opportunities out there. The Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, the AOPA, lots of great free resources. FAA as well online, and lots of things out there. And again, if there are any questions, I'll stop for a second and see if we have any questions to go over. I know it's early.
Yeah, no questions yet, Brian.
Perfect. All right. So building a case, so building a US program, so you're going to have to find money to do this, right? So making the financial case to who you need to talk to. There are lots of great case studies out there, lots of great white papers on looking at return on investment for the money you put in a drone program. There are safety concerns in a lot of industries, is getting a drone up on for power line inspection, for cell phone tower inspection, things like that. So safety, efficiency, you're doing more things better, etc. So if you can make that financial case, you can put that together to get the funding. So once you're on the path, picking the drone that's going to be best for you, choosing the platform that's going to meet your needs. So you want to think about what your typical mission would be, and then match the capabilities with that. If you're just doing imagery with a camera, if you need thermal, if you need survey grade, GPS, take all those things into consideration when you're looking, and reach out. Reach out to people who are already flying drones and see what they would recommend. That's one of the things I did. I had a friend, a former coworker, who was operating a DJI Phantom for the engineering company, and he was able to talk to me about things. Now, once you pick out the drone that you want, you have to register it with the FAA. Again, it's $5, and again, it's every couple of years. It's another $5 to just keep the registration current. And again, it's all online. It's pretty easy to do. Now, choosing a software program. So when you get your images, what are you going to do with the imagery? Are you going to stitch it together to make orthomosaic? Are you going to do DEM modeling? Are you going to be measuring things? So it's always best to test drive all the different products that are out there. There are Precision Hawk is free. I believe they're still free. And again, it's a limited number of times you can do it each month. But again, if you just need a quick and dirty orthomosaic, you can put that together. There's free programs out there. We previously had used Pix4D, which is pretty standard, and we just recently moved to the Esri drone to map, so we can integrate it more with our GIS Pro and things like that. But again, test drive the different products, see what's best for you, what capabilities match your needs. And I'm going to say this quite a few times, so it's important to have that safety culture from day one. Establish those standard operating procedures, best practices. Again, there's lots of information out there, the FAA website, current operators. Just make yourself safe. Set and observe your personal minimums as a drone operator. Don't fly in places you're not supposed to be flying. Don't fly in situations you're not comfortable in. And we can touch on more of that later. And then utilize checklists, because it's easy to overlook things. Have a checklist set out that you can tick the boxes as you're getting ready or as you're flying. Yeah. So I'll run through kind of like what an operation might look like. So your pre-flight planning, a lot of stuff you do on your desktop, the actual flight, your actual aerial operations, and afterwards when you're debriefing and then you're creating the product for your end user. Can't say it enough. The most important safety feature on these UASs isn't collision avoidance or anything like that. It's going to be you. It's going to be the operator. So again, recognizing that the FAA has tools out there. Again, many of them adopted from manned aircraft operations that they've been doing for decades. I am safe, making sure you're in a condition to be flying. PAVE, checking out, making sure you're safe, your aircraft's ready to go, the environment's safe, and not succumbing to any external pressures. And the 5 hazards attitudes are easy to slip into. And we'll talk about where I have perhaps slipped into them myself and learned some lessons. So weather is going to be a very important part of your pre-flight briefing. This is covered when you do your FAA test. They're going to cover sectional charts, airspace maps, how to read a weather report, and things like that. And so it's something you're going to utilize every flight. So 1-800-WEATHER-BRIEF or WXBrief.com is a great site that the FAA sanctions, and you can look at current conditions and your future conditions for the area you're going to be flying in. And it's funny, so it did used to start out, used to be 1-800, used to be a phone number you would call, but now it's moved to the website. So some more pre-flight planning, check your airspace where you're going to be at. The free FAA facility map at that address shows you areas that are specifically around airfields. And this example is for Grand Rapids, my neck of the woods. So showing you where you can't fly, and then the altitude restrictions as you move further to the 10-mile mark outside of the airport. And just a side note, I'm right on that dividing line over here to the west between the 300 and 400. If I cross the street, I'm in 400 airspace, but if I fly around the house, it's 300. So always consult your map. Get your authorization, your low altitude authorization notification capability, the LANC system. Again, there's lots of companies out there. AirMap is just what I've used because it's what I started with. Airspace Link seems like a great place to go as well, and look around and see again what the capabilities are, pricing and things like that for your needs. Before you go out, kind of visualize where you're going to be flying. Look at a Google map of the area. Think about, are there going to be power lines, trees, things like that? Where am I going to put the airframe down if there's any problems? Easy to do before you even make it out there and get up in the air. Notify and brief any other personnel. Normally where I'm flying, it's going to be, there's not going to be people around. There is a restriction against flying over people. We'll cover that later. But again, who needs to know that you're going to be out on a site? If it is an active site, make sure you're out. You let people, give them a heads up that you're going to be there. Do a quick brief when you get there to let them know what's going to be going on. And if you're going to be running beyond line of sight operations, if you have a flight observer with you, a visual observer, I should say, with you, or you're supervising somebody else is going to be doing the flying, brief them first. Talk about what y'all are going to do before you even get out there. And of course, inspect all of your equipment. Make sure your batteries are charged. Make sure your airframe is airworthy. Make sure there's no cracks in the blades, things like that. And this is where, again, your checklist is going to come into play. If you've got all this written down beforehand, and boom, you can go through it and make sure that you're good to go before you even set foot on the site. So plan like you fly and fly like you plan. Again, a lot of problems can be identified before you even get out onto a site. You can think through it first. On the right, I'm out at the old State Fairgrounds in Detroit. We used to own that property, which is now with the city of Detroit, and Amazon's building their facility out there. But getting out there, interestingly, it's an interesting area. Again, lots of obstructions, buildings, power lines, trees, things like that to think about. And on the left is using this was using Pix4D to actually create a flight path over a former correctional facility in Tuscola. So you plan it all out, and then thankfully the automation takes care of the rest. Now, during the flight, you always want to be maintaining your situational awareness of what's going on around you. This is a site up in Carson City, an old petroleum production facility that we have. And again, you're looking at trees, power lines, birds. I have frightened more than my share of birds flying these sites. And also the site conditions. Again, if you're out on a site and you have to keep your drone within visual line of sight at all times, if you're kind of walking around to make sure you have a visual on it, watch out, don't trip in a hole or fall into something or get into some bushes. You're monitoring your software and your airframe the whole time. And again, communication, if there are other people there, make sure you're talking with them, make sure your visual observer, you're in constant contact with them. So when you're all done, the post-mission stuff, when you're on the site, check your imagery and data that you got. Did you get what you need? Did you get the images you need? Does it look good? If not, do you need to go up and fly some more? Secure your UAS and all the other equipment that you may have. And then on the spot there, whether just debriefing yourself or with other personnel, what went right and what went wrong. It's always about the lesson that you learn on each flight. So the aspect post-mission is when you're back in your office, you're going to create the maps, the videos and images, whatever you're making for your end user. And if you're logging, and make sure you're logging your flight data. Again, there are apps online that can keep track of your battery life, some of the technical aspects of your flight, of the drone in flight. It'll monitor things like that. So make sure you're recording all that and write down any personal observations that you may have that may help you later on if you're thinking, oh, I was out on that site, but what was it like? So this one is a site out in Muskegon. So this is the former Glendale Elementary School. So went out there and flew the pattern with UAS. So you had hundreds of unprocessed images. You run it through your software to kick out either a three-dimensional product that you can interact with, or it'll stitch it together into a large ortho mosaic, very highly detailed, where you can look at the site. But again, you can put out DEMs and all sorts of other fancy stuff as well. So some of the lessons that I have learned from atypical situations I have found myself in, weather. So we talked about doing your weather brief beforehand, making sure conditions are going to be within limits and you can fly legally on that day. We were up in Marquette. There's a mall up there that they were thinking about redeveloping some of the pads outside of the mall space and things like that. So we went up there. I went up there and said, hey, I'll take the drone up. We'll fly it, get some nice imagery of it. Beforehand, I didn't probably pre-flight as well as I should have. This was right after we got the drone. So weather. So I thought, it's going to be some scattered rain. The visibility was still good. The winds might be picking up a little bit. So I thought to myself, well, I can get in there. I can get the images quick, get what we need to do before the weather hits, and no worries. Well, of course, it didn't work out that way. Got up there, got in the air, the squall lines moved through. And so I had to put the drone down safely. Did safely. There was no damage or anything like that. But scrambling to get out of the weather and then getting back up in the air to fly it. So when in doubt, always plan for the worst. I should have just waited for that weather to pass. It only took 30 minutes. But yeah, so we avoided any sort of negative outcomes. But a lesson learned. So airspace. So again, we own some of these former correction sites across the state. We have one in Ionia specifically, the Riverside Correctional Facility that you see on the top picture there, and it's also adjacent to. I apologize. This is Deerfield. I'm sorry. This is the Deerfield Correctional Facility. It is adjacent to the Riverside Correctional Facility, but the DJI drone that we fly, the Phantom 4, this is a geofenced area. So areas around prisons, stadiums, federal buildings and things like that, they geofence that to ensure that you can't fly over them. This facility has been closed for almost a decade, I would say. So there is a way to unlock these areas too when you get a bunch of paperwork together and go through the hoops. So I was able to unlock that airspace since we do own the site. And again, it's not neither of these sites are active sites. So went through the process with DJI to get the area unlocked. Error on my part, I didn't look to see that I verified the dates that it was going to be unlocked. So I went out there too early. So I went there a couple weeks too early. Tried to get up in the air to fly, was very frustrated. Why is this not working? I've got the authorization. Realized where I made my mistake. And I said, well, since I'm out here, maybe I'll just fly a little bit. I'll try and grab some images just from the periphery. So flying that, it worked okay, but again, I tried to push it a little bit. I got too close to some of the boundaries. The software did not like that, and the drone actually decided to land itself in the side of the boundaries of the other correctional facility, former correctional facility there at Riverside. So had to traipse over there, had to talk to the MDOC folks on site, ask them to let me in, and to go dig through the tall grass to find the airframe. Again, no damage, no safety concerns. But again, a lesson learned about knowing your limits. So the third one I will go over real quick. In Lenin, Michigan, there is a former window factory. Parts of it had been foreclosed and we owned it, and parts of it had not. And there's some residential very closely packed around it. So we ended up getting possession of all of these parcels of the former window factory. And so I was up there flying before and after. So we flew up a mission beforehand to map the site, and then post demolition went up and flew it as well. So this is the pre-demolition flight. Kind of out in the middle of nowhere. There was no airspace restrictions, no airports around. A cursory check of the area was good to go. So I began flying the lines, and I kept hearing an aircraft. It would be like a low sound at first, so I would pause. You're always wanting to be scanning your sections, always watching out for other manned traffic. And I could hear it, but I just couldn't see it. So finally it got really loud, so I stopped the mission. Turned out there was a crop duster flying off to the west. Again, I would hear him, but by the time I would look to see him, he was skirting the trees. So when I finally did see him, I stopped the operation. I took a couple photos of them flying by. But again, in order to maintain a safe separation from that aircraft, I just shut the operation down, waited till he was done. And again, it only took about 20 or 30 minutes before he was done with his the aerial application there, got back up in the air and finished off the mission. But again, always maintaining that situational awareness, looking around, and always yielding to any manned traffic, you know, in any situation, no matter how close they are. So getting plugged into the UAS community, I found has been a great resource. You know, people are all about sharing what works and frankly what doesn't work sometimes. I was out just flying with another state agency who shall remain unnamed, who were testing out some modifications on one of their airframes. Didn't quite go as planned. So again, no safety issues. But again, you learn what works and what doesn't work when you're out there doing it, and by checking with others who are flying. State of Michigan, before the pandemic, we had some meetings of drone operators across the state. We even had a fly-in with the DNR up in Gaylord. The DNR has a small airstrip up there. So some folks flew in, we brought our drones, and we even had the Wisconsin DNR fly over. They operate quite a large fleet of fixed wing and helicopters, and they were very interested in drones. So they came out and kind of sat through our meeting. And then after that was all done, we all kind of mustered over to that little airfield and just took the drones out and started flying them and talking to each other. And it was really a great learning experience. Lots of conferences that occur out there. There's websites, newsletters, webinars such as this one. There's really no shortage of resources out there. So just real quick, staying current, I was supposed to give this presentation a few months ago. FAA rules came down. There's been some changes to the Part 107. One of the big ones that's been kind of controversial is remote ID. This is going to require any drone to broadcast its position and specific information at all times. And it looks like new drones that are being made will have this capability built in. And it seems like the older drones, DJI just put out a press release, that says that they're going to retrofit, pretty much by software, any of the older drones that are out there flying to be compliant with this ID rule. Originally, there was some talk ADS-B is the current way that manned aircraft broadcast their position to each other. They decided not to do that because of just the sheer number of aircraft manned and unmanned that it would be out there and kind of overwhelm the system. They've got some new rules on night operations. Again, if you have the proper equipment and training, you can operate at night. Operations over people and moving vehicles is allowed, again, with training and restrictions. That's the big thing to say, is you can't just out of the box go fly over a bunch of people. You need to make sure that you're following the appropriate guidelines and the appropriate notifications. And this one was interesting. You always have to have your pilot certificate and any sort of associated paperwork with you. I kind of treat it like a driver's license. I just have it stuck in my wallet, so I carry it with me at all times. But make sure you always have it with you. But again, staying current is pretty easy. FAA is putting out newsletters, their websites that'll keep you up to date. You can get on mailing lists and things like that. So to kind of wrap it up, there seem like there are a lot of steps to get through, but it's kind of a relatively straightforward path, I would say, to get there. It just depends on identifying your needs, what you're going to be doing, and what budget you have and what works best for your particular missions. Again, an abundance of resources. If you look, you're going to find answers. Biggest thing too, is have fun. Operating these drones is pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. Again, at the DNR fly-in, we had everything from, this is like a little home-built drone that you could hold in your hand, and in the back you have a larger enterprise type system as well, and everything in between, and seeing all the cool things that are out there, and and just learning and interacting. So that's pretty much all I had. And again, any errors of commission or omission, I apologize. But yeah, see if there's any questions out there.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, we do have a few questions. Let's go ahead and leave up the slide you've got on right now there, because one of the questions was, how do we find out about these UAV gatherings with the DNR folks? And that might be somewhat on here. But I don't know, are there specific other resources about where you get some information about the gatherings of DNR and these other groups like you were talking about?
Yeah, for the state of Michigan users, it was just kind of like a way we got plugged in. So, our operations manager, has extensive contact with the DNR remediation person who happens to be a drone pilot. So, we just kind of got connected together. So it's just about, I think it's about those personal connections within the state of Michigan. And I'm not sure if there are other fly-ins or folks that are out there meeting up and flying and sharing information, things like that. I don't believe I've heard of any, but not to say they're not out there or that we couldn't start something like that,
Sure. Question going back towards the beginning, what type of insurance do you need in case of an accident, and how much does that insurance cost? Can you speak to that a little bit?
So we're covered under the state of Michigan kind of umbrella insurance that we have, but there are places where you can buy it by the year. We looked into doing it per mission. So there are insurers that will insure you for literally it's just a few bucks for each mission, so that way you're not spending a bunch of money. If like here in Michigan, I mean, I'm not really flying in December, January, February normally just because of the weather conditions and then, snow on the ground. So you have kind of on-demand insurance that you can get that's really affordable, or you can be covered under other blanket policies.
Okay.
My understanding. Again, I'm not an expert on that, so.
Yeah. Question is, are there regulatory requirements or audits around reporting out flight information such as flight hours logged? And then if so, how do you go about doing that?
So there's no FAA regulation saying that you have to report, how many hours you're flying. That's just something internally to that you can keep track of. Again, there is, oh my goodness. I'm blanking right now on the system that I use. The name has totally escaped me. But what I've done is it's a free website to where the drone will automatically talk to the website and update performance information, battery information, your flight time, speed, temperature, all sorts of kind of things like that. So that's good for, I think a lot of times for troubleshooting or planning. If you need to know if your battery has a certain number of hours in its life, or you've determined as an operating procedure that after X number of hours we're going to replace a battery or something like that. So it's normally more for keeping track for yourself. Again, there's nothing that I know of that mandates that you have to report into that, but it's good. I think it's good information to have. The more information you can log and keep and have, just to be safe. Yeah.
Sounds good. A couple of drone questions have come in. Matt asks, what drone would you recommend for GIS mapping capabilities and also to capture events? Do you have any drone recommendations?
So we fly the Phantom 4 Pro. But if you're going to if you need GPS grade measurements, there's some steps up from that. You can look at the enterprise editions of the Mavic. One thing I didn't talk about, this was talk last year, there was concern about the drones being manufactured in China, specifically DJI, which a lot of people fly. So there were questions. I know the Department of the Interior had banned Chinese drones, and so there was a push for American-made drones. And there were, I believe, 5 or 7 that came out on an approved list that the federal government put out at the end of last year. So, for just quick and easy, DJI has good products. You can look at the American-made ones. It just kind of depends on your mission. And again, you can get a specific drone that you like, and you can upgrade the cameras as well. If it doesn't have the camera that you like, you can upgrade it or do thermal and things like that. So yeah, again, there's so many of them out there. And again, some of them are very similar and some of them are very specific, but it's, just looking around and doing a little research and yeah, finding what fits for you.
Eric is just wondering, is your Phantom the RTK model?
No, it's not. And again, I think the RTK one has the survey grade capability, but ours is just a Phantom 4 Pro. So again, we can do images, still images, videos, DEMs, things like that, measuring on a basis where we're not looking for survey grade accuracy, but maybe just a general look at it. But it's an easy to fly drone, and I've enjoyed having it. So yeah.
Okay. Eric asks, do you use specific flight planning software?
I don't. I use, again, looking at the FAA website, the facility map, looking at the air map program to do your LANCE notification. I'm not sure. I've seen Airspace link some of their webinars. Yeah, there's lots of stuff out there. So.
Sure. And then question about pros and cons, and can you compare the drone to map versus Pix4D?
So frankly, I haven't used the drone to map enough yet to kind of do a side-by-side comparison. We literally, again, moving at the speed of bureaucracy, we literally just got it, and I haven't been able to be in the air very much to actually get it going. So I can't really give you a side-by-side. I'm excited to see though that if we can have the drone to map, it's easily integrates into the Arc Pro stuff to visualize these things. I'm excited to see where that goes, because as the state of Michigan, again, we're using parcel data from the DTMB and things like that. Oh, I'm sorry, stop sharing my screen. But yeah, I haven't done enough yet to give you a pros or con one way or the other.
Okay. So mostly you had used Pix4D then?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that was the one again, and it was again talking to people who had been out there using it. I used a Precision Hawk for a while for the first flights just to get up there and out there, and then Precision Hawk was able to spit out some imagery again at no cost, which was nice. Yeah, but Pix4D again it seemed like that's what a lot of people were using. I think some of the other state agencies were using it, and so it was an easier way to procure it through our process. Yeah.
Good comment. I'll share, not a question. It just came in from Michael. Drone to map is constantly being updated, but currently Pix4D is a better platform in his opinion. Esri is coming out with a total drone package soon. Eagle is going to be testing it out as soon as they can. So
cool.
Some good resources coming there as well. So thank you for that insight, Michael. So that is the end of the questions and comments I see. So I just want to say thank you, Brian, for sharing your knowledge and sharing with us about your experiences. I think we'll probably have a lot more questions. So to anybody out there that has more questions they think of, Brian had his contact information on that last screen. Otherwise, get in touch with Imagine. We'll make sure to get your questions to Brian, and we will definitely try to get those answers for you. So thank you very much, Brian, for sharing your experiences. And
Thank you.
With that, I just want to remind everyone that we are wrapping up the first season of our webinar series, but we do have a May 13 and May 27 webinar already scheduled, and we're building into June and throughout the summer. We're going to keep right on going. The Imagine conference, if you have not heard already, has been postponed to 2022 up at Mackinac Island. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with the pandemic issues. So we wanted to have a good celebration of being on Mackinac Island. So we've postponed that, but we are doing these webinars. We are now starting Geo Roundtables. So watch for announcements and emails about Geo Roundtable, just open discussions. We had our first one last week, and we'll have more of those coming up. And then just keep watching your email for news. We've got open elections, awards, nominations, things like that are all open. So make sure to check out the Imagine website for all of that information. And with that, I just want to say thank you to everyone that attended, and we hope you have a safe and happy weekend. Thanks for joining us.